Hi everyone, welcome to another Concord and Victory interview. We are delighted to welcome Will Kemble-Clarkson from Bruce 1996 to Concord and Victory. Will is the Chief Strategy Officer at The Vision, a media and technology company that develops tools for live streamers on platforms such as Twitch, YouTube, and Kick. His work focuses on creativity and innovation, bringing together technology, culture, and entertainment to help streamers connect with their audiences and collaborate with global brands.
After studying English literature at university, Will began his career in London advertising, where he learned how storytelling allows brands to engage and build lasting connections. Since then, he has worked across digital banking, telecoms, property and media, helping to launch and scale a wide range of businesses.
Beyond Division, Will supports emerging gaming studios by connecting them with funding in the Middle East and hosts Noob Gaming, a podcast exploring the fast-growing worlds of gaming, live streaming, and digital culture.
This evening's interview explores the theme of literacy, storytelling, and creativity in technology, media, and gaming.
Thank you for joining us this evening. To kick things off, please could you tell us a bit more about your various roles and why you think good literacy skills matter in your sector?
Hi there, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I can't imagine a role in life where good literary skills aren't absolutely essential. We are by definition animals that have mastered communication. It is what sets us apart from everything else. It is what has enabled us to transmit knowledge down the generations. It's what has enabled us to learn from the mistakes of previous generations and evolve as a society and a civilization. So, the ability, the very idea that being literate and articulate and being able to argue and think deeply and then express your views around any subject, not being an absolutely essential bit of not just work, but life and humanity and raising children and helping friends and, being someone to have over for dinner, let alone run a company. They are absolutely essential to everything that we do. I think, the thing about literacy or literature really is a way of being able to sort of put yourself in someone else's shoes, walk in the shoes of someone from a different background, different world. I'm a huge sci-fi fan as well. So literally different worlds and different universes in completely impossible, seemingly impossible scenarios, and just imagining experience from a world that is not yours. But of course, that also transcends laterally into you can walk in the footsteps of a scientist or a biologist or a zoologist or someone who's from a completely different background of yours through non-fiction and whatnot. So look, it's absolutely essential. It's the only way that you're ever going to be able to understand how other people work, how other people think. But the map is not the terrain, right? You read stuff and you learn stuff, but that should only really be there to tease your brain open to learning more on the ground and really understanding what the world is about.
Thank you. So you slightly mentioned literature and literacy. So how would you say your background in English literature influenced your current role in technology and media?
So, listen, the thing about English literature is, when you analyze literature, so whether you're reading, you're reading a sort of a complex poem, or you're trying to understand Chaucer, or trying to understand, the world through the eyes of a war poet, all of those things are about understanding human motivations. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are people reacting to a particular situation? Why was Pip cruel at the beginning of Great Expectations? Like, why did he make the choices he made? Why do any of these characters in books make the choices they make? And what are the consequences of those choices? And behind any product, any business, is a obsessive desire to understand what makes people tick. It's as simple as that. And for me, and literature and sort of an interest in the arts and why people do what they do, and then moving into advertising, which was, how do you understand what motivates people to be interested in a thing, motivates people to make choices around how they're going to itch or scratch, buy a particular detergent or contribute money to a certain charity or make a career choice in the army. Like, all of those things are about understanding humans. And, in my early life, advertising, it was about really how can we, if you like, bend people to a product that's fixed. Yeah? So you're looking to influence people's perceptions so that the thing that has been made is more attractive to them. But then as technology got better and faster and more adaptive, it means that you sort of flip it and you go, okay, how do I bend technology to meet people's needs? But the underlying skill is the same. It's like what makes people tick? Like, what we talk about this thing, what jobs people have to do in their life. Like, what are the things they're trying to solve? What are the things that upset them? What are the pains they have in their life? So really for me, literature, the transition to advertising, from there to marketing, but really a sort of a keen interest in digital and how to develop digital solutions that actually meet real needs, are all about understanding human behavior. You'll hear terms around behavioral design. You'll understand user experience design. All of these sort of concepts that are more broadly spoken about in the digital domain and in the design domain. All of them are fundamentally human activities, and there is nothing more human, as far as I'm concerned, than sitting and spending time with people, but also spending time with people's books and their writings and their thinking.
Thank you. What role does storytelling play in helping live streamers build relationships with their fans and brand?
Okay, so that is a beautifully simple question to which there is, I'm afraid, like a slightly convoluted and complex answer. We are of the view that if you imagine, so sort of taking a step back, so if we look at where young people, well, all people, frankly, but people are spending most of their time online, roughly 30% of time is spent in social media, so in the company of influencers, and about 35% of people's time is spent playing games or watching live streamers. And my view is that the influences of social media, to understand, I'm going to try and the critical difference between the two is like influencers saying, basically the people who run influencers are the platforms. And the platforms are basically like saying, come into our room, come onto our platform, and I'm going to throw as many things at you as possible so that you don't leave my platform. And I don't care what I throw at you, as long as you are outraged, excited, dopamine sated sufficiently to stay in platform. And I don't care how you feel, what you do. I don't care what happens as a consequence. And I don't care if you don't come back to this particular bit of content. All I care is you stay in Twitter, TikTok, Insta, whatever. The flip side, in live streaming, my job is really easy. Live streamers are entertainers. They are, by definition, humans who have found a connection with the community, and those communities come back time and time and time again. So rather than Insta, where I might, in the course of 50 minutes, flick through 300 pieces of content, live streaming is completely different fundamentally, because it comes from a world of gaming, which is about immersion, keeping people in an experience, and live streamers are entertainers. And so, our job is to work with these entertainers to understand how we can introduce into their entertainment brand messages. So things like products and services that they think their community will buy. But it's a really delicate balance, because in the same way, if you went to a stand-up comedian and that stand-up comedian was being sponsored by a particular brand, but that brand was completely incoherent with what that comedian's sense of humor was, what their typical, their stated interests are, you're going to smell a rat. You're going to think this is inauthentic. I don't want to spend time with this person anymore. So we in live streaming, the trick is, they are the storytellers by definition. They're the ones who know how to entertain. They're the ones who know how to connect. And so really, they're more like curators of an experience. So they are, by definition, the masters of that interaction. And our job as a business is to sort of work with them and help them craft that entertainment. But to be perfectly honest, they are the humanity. They do the storytelling. We just sort of sit on the side, a bit like a sort of film director, and encourage them to perhaps deliver a particular type of performance in a way, but not in an overbearing sense. So live streaming and storytelling are absolutely nested in each other. They are, you can't have one without the other.
Thank you. How do you see literacy and communication evolving in the fast-moving world of live streaming and gaming and social media?
There are a couple of ways to answer that question. I think you can. I'm going to take literacy to mean something more than I'm able to sort of read and write, and more I'm literate in understanding complex ideas and arguments and the subject matter that I'm consuming. I'm interested enough in the material to sort of spend time with it, to understand it, think about it, and then apply it to how I see the world, how I sort of interpret the external world. I think, we are definitely at an interesting point where, on the one hand, social media is driving a very sort of reductionary, a reductionary outcome to literacy and conversation, because everything is being reduced to essentially a data point which might be, here's a shocking fact you didn't know about X, or here's a shocking video about Y. And these data points are often presented in a context-free environment. Like, me as a viewer, I don't really understand whether or not that piece of information is or isn't accurate, because I don't really understand the genesis, the primitive from that, where that information came from. And I think, funnily enough, on the other side of that, gaming and live streaming, gaming is fundamentally a narrative arc. I don't know if you guys play games, but the game design is fundamentally, it's a bit like a book. It's like any other sort of entertainment format. If you can hear, that's my dog Kipling, as it would be. Kipling is barking. So I think, funny enough, so for me, and I'm aware of the fact that I'm sort of, my sort of bias here is that these are the waters in which I swim. But I find gaming as I have 2 young children, so I don't have time to play games in the way that I used to. But I find gaming is a fantastic way of storytelling. It is, if you think about the difference, people are engaged in a single environment in which they are following a narrative arc. They are presented with a series of choices that will enable them to succeed. So whether those are simplistically choices on how do you drive a Mario Kart, but in the more sort of engaged games is about how do I negotiate, build community, develop relationships, make better choices based on the context of a particular game. And those are great skills. Those are also sort of great narrative skills, right? If you think about the books that you love, you as the protagonist, as you move through it in the shoes of whoever the hero of the story is, they're presented with that same set of that same set of narrative arc, those sort of dramatic points, and that's what games do. And then live streaming, I don't want to over-egg it. Live streaming just has the mechanic of gameplay built into it, so people tend to stick around and watch the games, and they find it interesting because someone highly entertaining is playing a game and often getting it wrong. But there's a community who are logged in and they're interacting and talking about what they're seeing. So it is very much a sort of an entertainment form which is built around community and engagement, as opposed to, I think, sadly, many other forms of entertainment like TikTok, which are actually about fragmentation and incredibly short engagement experiences.
So with AI tools becoming more common, would you say that technology enhances creativity or risks making storytelling feel less sort of human?
I mean, I think the fact that humans can't realize that creating stuff, the art of creating stuff and going through the grind of creating stuff is what makes you human. And the very idea that we think it's a great idea that we should just outsource the thing that gives us most satisfaction and purpose in life to a machine is abominable. It is madness. It's not to say that I get it. I use AI all day, every day to do lots of things, but I get AI to do the stuff I don't want to do. I'm not asking it to do the things I love. And I think, we already, I don't know about you, but, we talk about, again, excuse the language, but it's sort of accepted term, the shitification of the internet. It's absolutely overwhelmed with extraordinary content that has clearly been written by ChatGPT. And humans look at it and we feel it. We can smell it straight out. There's no way you can feel. And that's because, like as an artist, fine, it gives you an intrinsic motivation to create something because I feel good about it, because I go through the hard work, like the sweat of actually creating something that I'm proud of, that makes me feel alive, makes me feel like I've understood something, makes me feel human. But the extrinsic element of it is just like, if you take shortcuts, people know. And it's the same thing with business, it's the same thing with everything else. When a company doesn't actually doesn't care about you. When you walk into a restaurant and the person who runs it doesn't really care. You can feel it. You can just sense it. And humans are highly attuned, thanks to obviously growing up on the savannas and in the jungles. We are highly attuned in ways that we can't fully understand to environments that don't feel human, that don't feel right. So I think, I think the reality is that I think AI doesn't present a risk per se. Like it's the thing is that humans are just sleepwalking into it. It's not that AI will become super intelligent. Humans just become super dumb. And because sadly, we've seen this time and time again. We just default to what's easy as opposed to default to what is good or right. And look, I'm conscious that feels a bit sort of doomsayerish, but I think ChatGPT, and I sort of say this I suppose it's hard. Like your generation is going to have a really difficult time. A bit like the generation before you, like they had to work out like the tail end of Gen Z, and have to sort of basically work out how much damage has been done to their brains by spending all that time on iPads and TikTok and Insta. We don't know. We have no idea. Well, that's not true. We do know. We know how much effect, how much damage it has had on young brains. And your generation is going to grow up with a world where you've got AI tools everywhere. And, we've got this sort of, we'll see what happens. But I think I would be incredibly mistrustful that is the way to go about it. Because don't forget that the tech companies that push this stuff, and I spent 2 years consulting inside of Facebook. Tech companies that push this, they have an agenda, they have more lobbyists, they have more money than anything else, and they will always push this story that if you push back against some of this technology, you're a Luddite and you're an idiot. And the courage for you to go, no, I'm standing up for humans. I think it's actually worth doing the work, because there's something that is intrinsic and intangible about doing the work that will make you feel better about being a human, and it will make you a better human, like no doubt, like 100%. Like this is how humans have evolved for the last 20,000 years, sort of Homo erectus and Homo sapiens. These are things that make us who we are. And it would be an absolute travesty for us to think that AI should be doing that job. So I think, for young people, all people, frankly, adults, they're probably the bloody worst. But you have to push against it. Have the courage to say no. Have the courage to say, I'm not going to do some poxy degree in some sort of business studies. Why? What is the point in that? Nobody knows what business is going to look like in 5 minutes. Most of the people who teach business studies at university, never really built a company in their lives. They haven't really got an idea either. So you might as well just go and study what you love. Go and do philosophy, go and do English. I mean, if you want to be a doctor, go and do chemistry, whatever. But for God's sake, the things that will make you a better human being, better at leading people, better at understanding problems, will be the things that you really care about. Like, become experts in what you love. And I think stories are something that are universal. Like, we all love stories. Now, not everyone loves reading, which is fine. So go and study film, go and study writing, whatever it might be. But I'm not for a moment do I ever regret doing literature at university. I mean, other people were doing these ridiculous degrees that no one ever used, and I spent 3 years, reading. It was amazing. It was literally all I did was read books, read poems, hang out, talk about them, and then I went out into the world afterwards. And it didn't matter, what people studied. It was for me, it was just one of the happiest sort of 3 years of my life. And I think it's like, going back to what I was saying, like, it's almost like the more you read. So I'm conscious that I'm monologuing here. The more you read, the more you look at the world. Like, everything is an adventure, right? Physical adventure. Like, you never know who you are unless you get the hell out of the building and go and experience stuff. Because you've got to go and bounce around and see what you like and what you don't like. Literature is a wonderful way of doing that from your own room. And it's not the same as watching, YouTube videos. It's like an hour, sort of like 10-minute snippets. You go and read books, you go and read philosophy, you go and read poems, you go and read different teachers, different perspectives on biology, chemistry, astrophysics, whatever it is. But you won't know who you are until you read lots of things to work out what you want to reject and what you want to embrace. And, if you stick too closely to a narrow, logically informed curriculum of someone else's view on what they think a particular subject should be, then you're kind of bound to a very narrow tract of understanding the world through which you're going to have to navigate. And frankly, it's a world that nobody knows what it's going to look like in 3 years. Nobody knows. Will we have general intelligence? General AI? Nobody knows. It's probably a coin toss, and that is terrifying. So I think, what's the best thing you can do? Double down on the things that you love, double down on being human, because ultimately that's going to be our only competitive edge, because you certainly don't want to try and be a robot, because you're going to be about as useful as a daisy flower in comparison to an AI.
Thank you. So just parking AI quickly. With VR and AR becoming more popular, what new opportunities or challenges do you think they bring for storytellers and creators?
Look, I think I'm a huge fan of VR. I spent 5-6 years ago. I did a deal with Oculus, the big Facebook business or Facebook acquired business for a telco. And at the time, I was running around telling everyone, all the senior people at this massive telco, that the world, you can divide the world into two sets of people: those who believe in AR, VR, and those who have tried it, because it is extraordinary and it is an amazing medium through which you can, again, do all the things we're discussing. It's a great storytelling medium, but without getting into a massively sort of complex conversation, because in itself is probably there's probably a degree's worth of debate. VR has its limitations around usability. It has its limitations around, obviously, unit size. Obviously, we've seen the Apple Pro just not managing to take off for various reasons, because people it's a step too far. Will it have its day? 100%. But I think there is no reason why VR and AR cannot become as exciting and diverse a sort of storytelling medium as anything else. The same way you love film, radio, podcasts, whatever. These are art, sculpture. It's all the bloody same thing. It's just different ways of telling stories. So I'm a huge fan of it. I really want to see where it goes. I hope it has its moment. It's had a few false starts, but again, it's one of those things that as technology continues to get cheaper, as the components get cheaper, and also I guess as people get more and more used to wearables, I think it'll have it will have its moment. But again, no one's quite sure when that will be.
Thank you. And now finally for our last question, what advice would you give to young people who want to tell stories through technology, media, or gaming?
Stick to the core. Don't worry about the medium. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is have a story that you give a shit about, and and people will feel that, and then execute it in whatever channel you feel is right. And and again, I go back to, it's like, there's that lovely lovely quote by the country and western singer whose name Dolly Parton, who says, find out who you are and be brilliant at that. And it's the same thing with storytelling. Storytelling, for all the reasons we just discussed, like is absolutely essential, an absolutely essential skill. I would spend all of my time thinking about what stories I like, what stories resonate, but also read all the stuff that you don't like. Because you can always get stuff out of the literature you don't normally go after. I think technology, we have a thing at the moment in technology where we used to say that technology was the moat, as in sort of the complexity of the technology was what would make it very difficult for people to compete with you. But now, obviously, in the advent of AI coding, that technology moat is disappearing. By moat, I mean as in a defensive characteristic. And now we're talking about actually the defensive moat being the story, the defensive moat being like which of these businesses actually mean what they say, which of these businesses actually stands for something that I care about. And most remarkably, I mean, like in all of these things, and this is my old brand self, but like the enemy is indifference. The enemy is people actually caring about what you do, care about what you're selling. And the only way people can care about what you sell or care about what you do is if you care deeply about what you do or what you sell, because people will smell it if you don't. And of course, the great, the sort of the great bonus there is that you'll do something that you love. The downside is that it's bloody hard work. Entrepreneurship and following your heart is not easy. But I guess that sounded like an ironic T-shirt. Life isn't meant to be easy. It's meant to be an experience through which you sort of go through these challenges to find the thing that you love. So yeah, go all out for the thing that you love. Read lots. If you ever meet anybody who's got no books, don't see them again. I think have fun. And I guess I know. I mean, I'm 47, and it's a bit of advice, but it's just that thing. Just like really follow the thing that you love, and particularly when the world is going to be potentially overrun by AI, you might as well, enjoy life whilst you can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.